My name is Clara, and I want to share with you my story. It started when I was a student at West Visayas State College in Iloilo in the Philippines, where I majored in education. In my third year, I started to feel anxious that I was falling behind and that the stress was building up day by day. My mind drifted to quitting and returning back home to be with my parents, but I knew if I walked out of college, I would let them down. They had worked so hard all their lives to afford to send me to school, toiling in the sugarcane fields and the rice paddies so they could save as much money as they could. They wanted a better life for me than what they had had, and I knew I'd be a bad daughter if I quit now. Just as my depression was ready to swallow me whole, I met Maria Gimo. Maria had transferred from a small village near Iloilo to our school, and the first day that she walked into our class, I gravitated towards her. She had a magnetic personality. Standing at about 154 centimeters tall, she had long, dark brown hair that hung down the middle of her back, and her eyes were so bright and full of life that it seemed like they sparkled each time Maria spoke. Maria had a lighter skin tone than I had, which made me think her family was well off and she didn't have to toil in the fields. Ever since the first date that we met, I knew we'd be the closest of friends, and I would not feel alone anymore. We'd have long talks about our families and about our hometowns. Clara, you should come and spend the holidays at my place. We have a large house and with plenty of room. It was exciting, and I longed to be out of the city, even just for a few days, so I agreed without a second thought. You are my dearest friend, and I cannot wait for my family to meet you. Maria beamed with excitement. Finally, the first day of school break arrived. I was dreaming when I was suddenly awakened by a heavy weight bouncing on top of my chest. Sleepily, I looked up to see what this unwelcome presence was. It was Maria. She was looking at me. She was smiling brightly as ever. Why are you awake so early? I mumbled to Maria. She looked down at me. Her ordinary bright eyes darkened, taking on a sinister aura, as she studied me intently. Well, I need you to get ready for the feast tonight. You are the guest of honor. Her voice was suddenly cold and detached. I was unsure how to react to Maria. She was scaring me. In a moment, my hands were pinned above my head, and Maria had dropped her chest onto mine, her face mere inches from my own. I felt like I was a mouse trapped, and I was desperate to escape. Maria inched closer and closer to me. I could feel her warm breath against my lips. A large smile spread, and she suddenly started laughing uncontrollably as she rolled off. Scared you, didn't I? Her laughter echoed throughout the room. Maria stood up and turned to face me. She told me to hurry up and prepare, as the jeepney would leave soon. Then she left me lying on the bed, feeling confused and slightly disturbed. About an hour later, we were wandering the busy streets of Iloilo, searching for the jeepney station. Maria led me by the hand and we disappeared into throngs of people, bodies bashed against each other. It was too hot to touch anyone. I thought despondently. We rounded a corner and in front of us was the station. The jeepneys were all lined up in a row. They were ablaze with numerous colours. They were like peacocks, trying to search for a mate. We found our ride. It was painted a bright red, with images of the Santo Niño. His glowing red cheeks adorned the side of the jeepney. Short blonde hair partially covered his wise eyes, and a crown stood proudly on his tiny head. A large sticker covered the large windscreen, and it read, "God guides us home." We scrambled through the back of the jeepney and sat down on the hard bench seat. The warm air came through the side of the window, doing nothing to cool us down. As we sat there, I resisted the urge to cover my nose. The mixture of sweat and the smell of an open gutter nearby was almost overpowering. The jeepney spluttered to life. Slowly it creaked and strained as it pulled forward out of the station. It headed for our destination. Eventually, the twisted streets of buildings and cement gave way to long stalks of sugarcane, rice paddies, palm trees, and small sari-sari stores. Maria raised a hand and signalled for the boy behind the jeepney that our stop was next. 3 loud metal cracks rang through the air as he struck the roof with a 10-peso coin. The jeepney lurched to a stop. Pushing past the other passengers, we finally escaped. Stepping down, my foot impacted the ground. It took me a few seconds to see where I was. Large palm trees sprung into the air, trying to reach for the treasure in the sky. The azure-coloured sky seemed to be more radiant here, not smothered in a brown haze like the city. Tiny traditional houses dotted all around. The nipa roofs rustled as the wind blew softly, causing them to stir from their slumber. It was magical standing there and taking in the beauty. It reminded me of my home. Maria tugged me by the sleeve of the blouse and motioned for me to follow her. We turned down a dirt road and started walking. She told me it'd take maybe 10 minutes to walk to her home. Before we started walking down that long, dusty road, we walked over to a sari-sari store. The old woman was sitting down behind the mesh screen, and she looked at us momentarily. Her mouth open revealed a toothy grin. Several of her teeth were missing. Not letting the old woman disturb me, I ordered a few drinks and she disappeared for a few seconds, before she returned with 2 plastic bags with straws sticking out of them. The sun was blistering hot, and as we walked, we attempted to stay in the shade of the palm trees. Each time their shade faded into the sunlight, we ran to the next haven, if only to get a few moments of reprieve from the heat. A large Spanish-style hacienda came into view. Its white walls reminded me of a fluffy cloud. Black tiles covered the roof, and the windows were stained with rainbows of colours. Large cement fences adorned with razor wire surrounded Maria's home. As we were approaching the compound's gate, a small man stood there. His pale blue uniform was immaculate. Not a single crease could be seen. The man wore white gloves, and he gripped a shotgun tightly in both hands. His eyes looked over me with an air of suspicion and distrust. Maria popped out from behind me, and the guard's stern face suddenly melted away, leaving an innocent smile that reminded me of a child seeking the approval of a loving parent. "Lady Maria, it is so lovely to see you home again. Your father is expecting you." He beamed as he spoke. The guard reached over and placed his gloved hand against the iron-wrought gate and pulled it open. We quickly walked through. It was hard to imagine that such a beautiful place could exist in the province. Large palm trees lined the house's boundaries. I'd never seen anything so green in my life before. I didn't have time to take in any more sights as Maria pulled me towards the front door. It opened suddenly, and a man stepped through. "Anak!" he cried like an excited puppy. Maria dropped my hand and ran towards the man, her arms wrapped around him, and she squealed, "Papa!" It was wonderful seeing the two of them hold each other. I could feel the love radiating from them, and it made me miss my own parents so very deeply. Mr. Gimo was smartly dressed in military uniform. The patches of green and brown felt intimidating to look at, but he had a kind smile, and that put me at ease. "Anak, it is so good to see you. Who is this beautiful woman that you have brought with you?" He flashed me his most charming smile. Maria smiled at her father and replied, "This is my friend Clara. This is the one I told you about. She's my best friend, and she's from Bacolod." Her excitement filled the room. "Bacolod, huh? We have some relatives from the City of Smiles. It has been a long time since we've seen them." His eyes lingered in the distance as he seemed to remember some fond memories. "Thank you, sir. It is a pleasure to meet you, and Maria has told me so much about you," I said, feeling a little nervous. We talked some more, and Maria insisted that we go and freshen up for dinner. After we freshened up, we feasted for what felt like hours. There was dishes from all over the Philippines. The maids were dressed beautifully in the style of the French. Black dresses with frills, white blouses, and a maid's cap. They looked so elegant. Mr. Gimo sat at the head of the table. He chatted with both of us. but I noticed he hadn't eaten anything. "Mr. Gimo, won't you join us?" I asked, feeling a little ashamed of eating in front of him. He turned towards me. His smile lightened the room as he spoke. "It's all right, my dear. I had a large lunch, so I'm full, but I'll eat something special later." His words had a cold edge to them that betrayed his smile. Eventually, the night drew to a close, and Maria and I returned to her bedroom to retire for the night. I crawled up into a large bed. The mattress was so soft that I could feel myself sinking into it. I imagined I was like a marshmallow, and I just let myself go. The night was hot, and Maria's window was the only source of fresh air. Not even a whisper of a breeze entered her room. Maria's soft snores drifted into the night air. It was clear that the heat didn't bother her at all. I lay there wishing sleep would come for me, but I just felt jealous that Maria could fall asleep in that heat. As time drifted ever forward, the hot night was starting to get the better of me. I quietly slipped off the bed and made my way towards the kitchen. Maybe a nice cold glass of water would allow me to drift off to sleep. As I approached the banister, I could hear some noise down below me. I didn't recognize any of the voices. They were talking in a hushed and excited tone. Were they Maria's relatives, I wondered? And why were they out at this time of night? Squatting near the top of the stairs, I looked through the crack of the banister. I couldn't tell how many people were down there, but I could make out Mr. Gimo. He motioned for the group to follow him into the kitchen. Curiosity got the better of me, and I snuck down the stairs as quietly as I could muster. Fear was starting to creep up my legs with each step, and soon my feet began to ache the closer I got to the group. The doorway to the kitchen was in front of me. I peered around the corner to see what was happening. The smell of fresh garlic and ginger wafted into my nose, making my stomach yelp slightly in hunger. "It has been a long time since we've had fresh meat," said one of the voices behind the door. "You have to be careful not to grab Maria. They are sleeping in the same bed." "How will we know which girl to get?" another voice echoed. Mr. Gimo looked in their direction and smiled. It was the same smile from dinner, and this one had a sinister edge to it. "The one with the wristwatch. She is the one you need to get. Hit her on the head and bring her to me, and I will prepare her for our feast," Mr. Gimo said. His eyes seemed to glow as he spoke. Instinctively, I reached down to my left wrist and felt my watch. He was right. Maria never wore a watch. It was then I realized what he was. He was an Aswang, and they were planning to eat me. They had tricked me, damn it. Maria tricked me. She'd planned for me to come here, for me to be their feast. Quietly as I could, I scrambled back up the stairs, hoping that they didn't hear me. Entering Maria's room, I looked around desperately, looking for a way out. There had to be an escape. A gentle snoring was all that could be heard. I turned and looked at my friend. Her left arm was hanging off the bed. I reached down and unclipped my watch and crept over to Maria. I slipped it over her wrist slowly and deliberately. It would be all over if she woke up now. Thankfully, she kept snoring, and the watch was latched into position. There was a noise in the distance. I could hear footsteps as they made their way up the staircase. I slowly placed myself back into bed, making sure not to disturb Maria. Pulling the sheets over my head, I lay there waiting. Muffled voices came closer until they reached Maria's doorway. "Remember, the one with the wristwatch," a voice whispered. "It's this one." And then a sickening thud came out of the darkness. With each impact, my body shook under the sheets. Finally, the blows stopped coming, and I felt them pull Maria off the bed. She hit the floor with a loud thud. I adjusted the sheet ever so slightly so I could see what they were doing. They'd put Maria into a large sack. They grunted as they dragged the bag out of the room. Loud bangs could be heard as the bag bounced down the stairs. It was now or never. I had to escape before they discovered the truth. Maria's window was small, but it was just big enough for me to squeeze myself through, I thought. Pushing it open, I moved my arms through, then my head, followed by the rest of my body. My hands reached out and touched the smooth, tiled roof, lowering myself down onto the hard ceramic. I tried not to make a sound, scanning the area. I needed to find somewhere I could jump down. Finally, I found a spot. Bracing myself for impact, I leapt into the dark abyss. My legs hit the ground painfully, and a jolt of electricity shot out through my entire body. I stifled the scream in my throat. Staying in the shadows, I dared not to step into the light. I crept towards the gate. It was then I remembered. The guard. I moved as quietly as I could, feeling each blade of grass poking into my feet painfully as I approached the guardhouse. The stool where the guard sits came into view. It was empty, thank God. He was not at his post. I grabbed the gate and pulled it open. Its well-oiled hinges didn't make a sound, much to my relief. I was running before the gate was fully open. I had to make it back to the main road and to my freedom. Small sharp stones tore at my feet as I ran. I didn't feel the pain. Fear was driving me ever forward. Then a scream filled the night. It sounded like a bird shrieking in grief. My heart ached from the agony of that cry. Mr. Gimo must have discovered his daughter. The trees and plants behind me seemed alive. I could hear them. They were coming for me. The sound of running came alive. I could hear them all around me. They were moaning and screaming at me. They sounded like some kind of demonic animal searching for its prey. A noise started to come from above me. It sounded like leather being slapped against leather. As it came closer, it sounded like whack, whack, or a tick-tick sound. They were catching up. I could feel their hot, moist, sickly breath against my skin as I ran. Lights! The road is just up ahead. My lungs were burning. It was hard to breathe. I had to keep running. They were going to catch me if I stopped now. The screams were getting closer. He was right on top of me. I could feel it. His malice and his hatred were unbearable. A pair of hands reached out of the darkness and grabbed me. I felt myself spin to the side as they pulled me. My God, he has me. I'm going to die. I screamed. My hands, I balled them into fists and I lashed out. Let go of me. My words exploded into the night. Miss, stop hitting me. You are safe now. Tell me what's wrong. These were the last words I heard before everything went dark. When I came to, I was laying in a hospital, being treated for exhaustion. The man who'd been my unwitting rescuer was next to my bed, waiting for me to come to. He was a young man. His finely trimmed hair was pressed into his military cap. His uniform was finely pressed, and there was a pistol rested on his belt. I explained to the officer what had happened at the Gimo house, and as I told him my story, his face became ashen white. He listened intently to every word that I said. After I'd finished, he paused for a moment before speaking. You are lucky to be alive. We have known in this barangay for some time that Tenyente Gimo is an Aswang, but we didn't have any proof. He was a senior officer with substantial wealth. We couldn't touch him, but with what you've told me, we now have proof. He thanked me, got up and left in a hurry. Soon after, I could hear the sounds of sirens in the distance. I couldn't tell how many there were, but there seemed to be a lot, and they were rushing somewhere in a hurry. Later that day, the nurse came in, and I asked her about the sirens and about what was happening. The police and military have all gone to arrest Tenyente Gimo, but when they arrived at his place, he was gone. But they did find the remains of a young woman in the house. They say she was butchered, and they were eating her. I mumbled to the nurse that could have been me. She smiled and touched my hair softly before leaving the room. A few days later, a military guard escorted me back to Bacolod, and I never left Bacolod again. I was too scared to return to Iloilo to complete my studies. Gimo Tenyente and his family were never found. It was said that they are still wandering the mountains of Pinay, searching for their next feast. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's lullaby. If you enjoy my content, please like, comment, and subscribe. And remember, dear viewer, keep watching for what's in the dark.